Sirens washed my porch in red and blue, while I unfolded a county plat map across a deputy's cruiser. The thick black boundary line ran like a scar. Past my fence, the deputy traced it, looked at the HOA president who had called the cops on me, and said, "Ma'am, his lot isn't in your HOA," and the room went quiet. The way a dog goes quiet when thunder sits right over the house 10 minutes later. A gavel hit a folding table, and her clipboard wasn't hers anymore. Yeah, that happened. My name is Mason Cole. I build things for a living, decks and kitchens, and the kind of porches where kids kick their shoes off and summer sticks to your skin. And I bought this tired split level at 93 Cedar Loop because I grew up driving past Cedar Glen Estates and telling myself one day I'd bring color back to a place that forgot it needed any. My granddad's copper wind chimes hang by my front door. He cut them for me when I was 8, and if you've ever been taught to build sturdy and live honest, you know exactly the kind of peace I was chasing. You know what I mean? Day 1, I parked my work truck in the driveway logo magnet on the door ladder, on the rack cedar posts laid out in the grass, because I was measuring for a knee-high fence to hold tomatoes and string lights. Nothing wild, just a frame. For a simple life. Then at 6:01 a.m., a knock landed like a debt collector for oxygen, and I opened the door in a t-shirt toothpaste still sharp in my mouth, and there stood Linda Hartley, HOA president, blazer that squeaked when she moved, white sneakers that had never met dust clipboard. Tucked like a weapon, immediate violation, she said, commercial vehicle. Overnight materials staged on front lawn, $500 fine payable in 72 hours. Bylaw 7.3b. No tools visible from Street 7.9. No materials in view. No signage on vehicles. And she snapped photos of my ladder, my posts, my face, the way some people collect stamps. I said I'd move the posts after coffee and cover the logo, and she said, "We already documented, and oh, by the way, wind chimes are restricted to the backyard." I looked at my granddad's chimes and said, "They stay because there are lines you don't erase." By 9 o'clock, 3 more notices were taped to my door. Hose left across the lawn, while I flushed the spigot trash can out 9 minutes early. Cooler on the porch too long after use, and there's a particular sting in being shamed at home. The neighbor across the street pretended to check his mail 3 times, like he was waiting for courage to be delivered. I swallowed. Pride moved the tools, rolled the hose. Told myself being a good neighbor sometimes means, eating a little crow and keeping your head down. 2 days later, my driveway looked like a crime scene. An orange boot clamped my small work trailer, even though it sat on my own slab, hitched to my truck. Whoa. Thrice tag flapping. I called the number and Linda answered bright as a fire alarm. Bylaw 10. 5 no trailers visible from street store. It in your garage. It doesn't fit. Not my concern. Apply for a variance. Next month, keep your account current or amenity access may be disabled. She said, amenity like kale. I said, you cut my key fob. I won't drown. You choke my livelihood. I'll push back, and she added, submit a fence plan for architectural review. Cedar Glen prefers uniform aesthetics. Cedar Glen prefers beige, I said. And beige isn't an aesthetic. It's a mood disorder. Then, I hung up before my mouth wrote checks. My day couldn't cash. That evening, Grace Martinez from next door showed up with a hot casserole and a quiet voice I brought. Green chile mac. And also a thought, she said. Your lot is weird, The street line jogs at your fence, check the county plat, and you might find a surprise translation. Linda respects power and paperwork, bring both. She lifted her phone and added, I record everything from my porch. She gets brave when she thinks no one's watching. Over the next 3 days, the fines stacked like junk mail after a long vacation. My warm white lights weren't warm enough. My magnet logo suggested commerce. The HOA app put my address under ongoing compliance concern, and strangers who hadn't met me tapped thumbs down like they were saving the block from a cedar plague. And there's a special kind of heat that builds in your chest when a place that's supposed to be soft turns into a stage. So I pulled my closing file, read the legal description out loud to myself like a prayer. So at 23 Cedar Glen Estates, Phase 2B, according to the recorded plat thereof, declaration recorded. Book 1472, page 226, expressly excluding Phase 2B. I read it again, excluding not including. My pulse kicked. I texted Jordan Kim, a title attorney I met while we were hanging sheetrock at a youth center. She called from courthouse, steps. Text me the legal and plat, she said. And a minute later she whistled low. If your lot never annexed into their covenants, they have no jurisdiction. Go to the county recorder. Ask for the 1999 plat and any amendments touching Phase 2B. Ask for the declaration. And every amendment see if Lot 23 executed a joinder. If not, you're out. I'll draft a letter. The recorder's office smelled like paper and coffee, and the peace you get in rooms where truth comes with a stamp. A mapping specialist named Tyler Nguyen pulled a long drawer and laid out the original plat and a 2003 amended plat. Thick black line for HOA boundary. My lot hanging like a door off its hinge. Note at the bottom. This plat is not subject to the Cedar Glen declaration filed. Owner executes a joinder. Tyler printed certified copies and pointed to a second page. Your driveway easement crosses what they call Common Area A. Legally, your right-of-way. I walked out with paper that felt heavier than it should. Texted photos to Jordan, and an hour later, she sent back a 2-page opinion letter that read like a clean right hand. Lot 23 not subject fines. Void any lien. Wrongful, booted trailer. Equals interference with private. Chattel remove immediately. And for good measure, my cousin Sam, a civil engineer with a voice like a cool sink, fired over a memo that my French drain met county specs, which made Linda's drainage violation text sound like fiction. That afternoon, Linda's white SUV rolled the loop like she was on safari for rule breakers. I waited on my porch with my folder. When she stepped onto my walkway, I met her halfway and said, I'm not under your HOA. You don't have jurisdiction over Lot 23. Here's the plat. Here's the note, excluding Phase 2B as a legal opinion. Please remove the boot, rescind the fines, and stop posting my address. She smiled like a cat at a curtain and said, You can't just decide that we have a process. And then she dialed 911 and told the dispatcher. She was the HOA president, that a man was trespassing on common property, that I was aggressive, and she felt threatened. Grace's porch light clicked, and her phone lifted, and something in me went a dill. Hands visible. Voice low. Announce your moves. That's the talk I give myself like a seatbelt. The cruiser turned the corner. Blue lights skating across 100 shades of beige. The older deputy. Sergeant Riker wore weariness like a jacket. The younger planted his feet, like the ground might surprise him to step over here. What's going on tonight? Riker said. My name is Mason Cole. I own 93 Cedar Loop. I have documents that address her claim. I said folder in my left hand. I'm setting it on your hood. I laid the plat down on cool metal and pointed thick black line. HOA boundary. Lot 23 sits outside. Note, says not subject. Unless joined or recorded. None exists. Opinion letter is on top. Riker traced the line with his finger. Read. Slow asked. Where I got the copies. County recorder certified. I said, then he turned to Linda. Did your board confirm jurisdiction? He asked it twice. Same even tone. And while she blinked, a county SUV pulled up, and Tyler stepped out with a manila envelope and more certified copies. We all ended up at the clubhouse at 6, because Riker said maybe we keep this from growing legs. And if you've ever been in a room packed with folding chairs and nerves, you know the smell. The place filled shoulder to shoulder quiet. Please sign. Nobody honored the board at a plastic table. Treasurer with a calculator. Secretary with minutes. Linda in the middle, with her jaw set like rebar. Tyler clipped the plat to a little easel and talked like facts were enough. Phase 2B was platted separate. No joinder for Lot 23 on record. HOA enforcement against Lot. Jurisdiction. Jordan arrived in a navy blazer with damp hair and spoke in that steady courtroom pace. Fines rescinded. No liens. Boot removed now. Or we file cooperation preferred, then grace. Airplayed 2 videos first. One was Linda telling a board mate, we need to make an example so the others don't try him. Second was today's call, where she told dispatch. I was aggressive while I stood 30 feet away with my hands open, and a manila folder like a life jacket. The room shifted. The treasurer stopped typing and said we collected $4,280 this quarter in rapid enforcement fees. And if some of that is outside jurisdiction, our risk is significant. Someone in a Broncos cap said. So, you've been fining the wrong people too. Linda shot back. We maintain standards. And from the back, a voice said, it's not standards, it's suffocation. The secretary stared at her lap, then lifted her head and said, I move to remove President Hartley for cause, malfeasance, and exposing the association to liability. And the treasurer seconded, and Jordan slid a page that said, their bylaws allowed it by majority vote. Riker stepped closer without making it a moment. The board voted. Yes. The treasurer gently took Linda's clipboard, and Riker read a badge number into his mic. For the chain of custody on the boot receipt. Linda said, you can't. And the secretary said, watch us. The gavel hit, and the air in the room lifted like it had been holding its breath underwater. That's where I cut it in my head. Not because there wasn't more. There will be a DA who reads a report, a boot that comes off probably a few refunds, and an audit. Nobody wants, but because the story is the turn, a line on a map that always knew where it sat. Finally spoke louder than a loud person with a title, and for me, the ache that sat under the fines and the posts and the orange boot was simpler and older, being assumed a problem. Before I say hello, watching someone role play, fear while I rehearse survival, thinking about my granddad's chimes and realizing some folks will cite you for music because they never learned to hear it. I didn't win by yelling. I won by walking in with paperwork, patience, and neighbors who hit record instead of looking away. And if you live under an HOA, do yourself a favor. Read your deed, read your plat, find the book and page numbers. Don't just memorize pool hours. Ask who gets to draw the line you live inside, and if you sit on a board, hear this? Gently, standards aren't a religion. Beige isn't a moral value. Quiet isn't. Peace, sometimes a wind chime, belongs right where it is, because the boy who lives there once watched his grandfather cut copper and learned what home sounds like. Tell me this, because I honestly want to hear it. Should the DA press charges for the false report? Or is public removal and a clean audit enough? Where does authority turn into abuse for you? What's the pettiest rule you've ever been hit with? And did I draw the line in the right place? Drop a comment. Share your story. Argue with me if you need to like and subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. Because if this ticked you off or set you free, I want to hear every mile of it.